and please let the staff person hold the mic. Thank you.
Please convey to the filmmaker what an incredibly powerful, beautiful film this is. Could you please convey to the filmmaker what a powerful and beautiful film this is, and thank her for those of us that appreciate this film. My question is in regard to the issue of criminal intent of the bulldozer driver and the authorities that gave orders to do the bulldozing. Have you and your husband considered using the U.S. judicial system to, or the international human rights judicial systems, to bring any cases in regard to the potential manslaughter or criminal intent situation in regard to Rachel's death and on the bigger picture?
Let's leave it at that question.
Okay. First, Simone's sister is here with me in the audience. I know she'll convey your feelings about the film and so on. Regarding legal proceedings, our family has worked on this now for 7 years, nearly 7 years. We pursued, we tried to determine, well, let me start back a little bit. After Rachel was killed, the day after she was killed, President Bush talked with Prime Minister Sharon, and according to reports from the State Department, was promised a thorough, credible, and transparent investigation into Rachel's killing. Soon after that, our Congressman Brian Baird introduced a resolution into the U.S. House of Representatives calling for an independent U.S. investigation into Rachel's case. All that it did was to extend condolences to our family, for Israel and the United States to work together to make sure nothing like this ever happened again, and for an independent U.S. investigation. Thanks to the efforts of thousands of people across the United States who went to their congressional offices to ask for support for that resolution. When it died in committee, which it did, it never got out of committee, it did, though, have 78 members of Congress who had signed on in support. Congressman Baird told us at the time that he, when it was introduced, he thought maybe we'd be lucky to get 30 people to sign on in the House, because anything at that point that implied any criticism of Israel, even simply asking for an investigation, was not likely to get support. So we felt really very happy and very appreciative of the efforts that went into trying to get that resolution passed. We inquired, we were working with the State Department throughout, and we inquired about whether there was a U.S. statute under which there could be investigation of Rachel's case. It took us 2 years to get a contact in the Justice Department. And it was someone in Congress who suggested that we go speak with the U.S. Attorney in Western Washington. He's not there anymore. He was one of the attorneys, actually, U.S. attorneys who was dismissed during the Bush administration. His name was McKay. When we walked in the door to meet with him, he said, "I will give you as much time as you need, but I'm here to tell you there will never be a U.S. investigation of Rachel's case. There's one U.S. statute that could be used for an investigation in this country. It's actually part of the counterterrorism statutes. In order for it to be utilized, you have to have a signature from the U.S. Attorney General in order for there to be prosecution." He said at the point, in order to be investigation, we found that's not true. But for prosecution, it has to have certification from the U.S. Attorney General. And the statute, he has to sign that there could be evidence of coercion, intimidation, or retaliation against a civilian population or a government, which we felt was certainly the case in the area where Rachel was in the West Bank. But Mr. McKay told us that no Attorney General, past, present, or future, would ever so certify on the statute against Israel, even though the statute has been used against other governments. Some of you know that we were part of a case against Caterpillar Corporation because, which is now completed, where it didn't, we worked on it for a long time, but we were on this suit with Palestinian families, or Palestinian families who had family members who were killed when houses were demolished on them in the West Bank and in Gaza. And it wasn't, I'm happy for the opportunity to say that we didn't become involved with this lawsuit because Caterpillar Corporation sold a bulldozer and then something bad happened with it. We became involved in that because Caterpillar Corporation has been on report, on notice for many years that their equipment is being used to commit human rights violations in the West Bank and Gaza. And yet they continue to sell their equipment and to service their equipment. And so for that reason, there is law that actually comes out of World War II, it comes out of the Holocaust, some of it. And that says that if you knowingly continue to support human rights violations, that corporations can be prosecuted. It was on the basis of political question. It was dismissed in our Western Washington courts. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals heard it, but also upheld the lower court ruling on the basis of political question, which not on really the facts or the merits of the case, but on the fact that they ruled that the foreign policy is in the realm of the legislative and executive branches, not the judicial. I'll just say one more thing about it. We have I know it's long, we have a lawsuit, a civil suit in Israel 2 years after Rachel was killed. And I don't think of us as a litigious family at all, but nothing had happened really on Rachel's case. One more thing, just so you know before you leave, the position of the U.S. government is that Rachel's case has not had thorough, credible, and transparent investigation. We have that in writing from Lawrence Wilkerson, the Chief of Staff to Colin Powell. It was restated before a committee that here receives the Human Rights Report from the United States State Department each year by a representative who spoke on that. And it continues to be the position of the U.S. government that Rachel's case has not been properly investigated by Israel. Last year, the last communication that we have in writing from the State Department was from Michelle Bernier-Toff, who wrote to us that the State Department continues to talk with the government of Israel about Rachel's case and to say that it needs to be thoroughly investigated and that their requests either go incompletely answered or ignored. So that's the position of the U.S. government. When nothing was happening, we did file a civil suit. There was a law in the Knesset for a very for a while. The Knesset passed a law that made it impossible for people to bring suit for anything that happened in the West Bank and Gaza basically. And it was retroactive to the beginning of the Second Intifada in 2000. That was overturned by the Israeli Supreme Court's human rights organizations like B'Tselem in Israel and other human rights organizations opposed that. And it was overturned in the courts, and now very slowly our case is moving forward, but we've had word that there is a court date, which is coincidentally next March 2010, which will be the 7th anniversary of Rachel's killing.
Let's go to a question here. Hi.